Hello guys, welcome back to our channel Library and I. Today I'll be reading a part from the book Percy Jackson and the Greek Heroes by Rick Riordan. Perseus needs a hug. So let's begin. Perseus wants a hug. I had to start with this guy. After all, he's my namesake. We got different godly fathers, but my mom liked Perseus' story for one simple reason: he lives. Perseus doesn't get hacked to pieces. He doesn't get damned to eternal punishment. As far as heroes go, this dude gets a happy ending. Which is not to say that his life didn't suck. And he did murder a lot of people. But what are you gonna do? Perseus' bad luck started even before he was born. First, you gotta understand that back in the day, Greece wasn't one country. It was divided into a gazillion different little kingdoms. Nobody went around saying, "Hi, I'm Greek." People would ask you which city state you were from: Athens, Thebes, Sparta, Zeusville, or whatever. The Greek mainland was a huge piece of real estate. Every city had its own king. Sprinkled around the Mediterranean Sea were hundreds of islands, and each one of them was a separate kingdom too. Imagine if life were like that today. Maybe you live in Manhattan. Your local kings would have his own army, his own taxes, his own rules. If you broke the law in Manhattan, you could run away to Hackensack, New Jersey. The king of Hackensack could grant you asylum, and Manhattan couldn't do anything about it, unless, of course, the two kings became allies, in which case you were toast. Cities would be attacking each other all the time. The king of Brooklyn might decide to go to war with Staten Island, or the Bronx and the Greenwich. Connecticut might form a military alliance and invade Harlem. You can see how that would make life interesting. Anyway, one city on the Greek mainland was called Argos. It wasn't the biggest or most powerful city, but it was a respectable size. Folks who lived there called themselves Argives because Argosites would have made them sound like some kind of bacteria. The king's name was Acrisius. He was a nasty piece of work. If he were your king, you would totally want to run away to Hackensack. Acrisius had a beautiful daughter named Diana, but that wasn't good enough for him. Back then, it was all about sons. You had to have a boy or a child to carry on the family name, inherit the kingdom when you died, blah blah blah. Why couldn't a girl take over the kingdom? I don't know, it's stupid, but that's how it was. Acrisius kept yelling at his wife, "Have sons, I want sons," but that didn't help. When his wife died, probably from stress, the king started getting really nervous. If he died without a male offspring, his younger brother Proteus would take over the kingdom, and the two of them hated each other. In desperation, Acrisius took a trip to the Oracle of Delphi to get his fortune read. Now, going to the Oracle is usually what we call a bad idea. You had to take a long trip to the city of Delphi and visit this dark cave at the edge of the town where a veiled lady sat on a three-legged stool, inhaling volcanic vapor all day and seeing visions. You would leave an expensive offering with the priest at the door. Then you ask the oracle one question. Most likely she'd answer you with some rambling riddle. Then you would leave confused, terrified, and poorer. But like I said, Acrisius was desperate. He asked, "Oh oracle, what's the deal with my not having sons? Who's supposed to take the throne and carry on the family name?" This time, the oracle did not speak in riddles. "That's easy," she said in a raspy voice. "You will never have sons. One day your daughter Danae will have a son. That boy will kill you and become the next king of Argus. Thank you for your offering. Have a nice day." Stunned and angry, Acrisius returned home. When he got to the palace, his daughter came to see him. "Father, what's wrong? What did the oracle say?" He stared at Danae, his beautiful girl with her long dark hair and lovely brown eyes. Many men had asked to marry her. Now all Acrisius could think about was the prophecy. He could never allow Danae to marry. She could never have a son. She wasn't his daughter anymore. She was his death sentence. The oracle said that you are the problem, he snarled. You will betray me. You will see me murdered. What? Danae recoiled in shock. Never, father. Guards, Acrisius said. Take this wild creature away. Danae couldn't understand what she'd done. She always tried to be kind and considerate. She loved her father, even though he was scary and angry, and liked to hunt peasants in the woods with a spear and a pack of rabid dogs. Danae always made the appropriate sacrifices to the gods. She said her prayers, ate her vegetables, and did all her homework. Why was her suddenly convinced she was a traitor? She got no answers. The guards took her away and locked her in the king's maximum security underground cell. A broom closet sized room with a toilet, a stone slab for a bed, and 12-inch thick bronze walls. One heavily gated air shaft in the ceiling allowed Diana to breathe and get a little light, but on hot days the bronze cell heated up like a boiling kettle. The triple locked door had no window, just a small slot at the bottom for a food tray. Acrisius kept the only key because he didn't trust the guards. Each day, Diana got 2 dry biscuits and a glass of water. No yard time, no visitors, no internet privileges, nothing. Maybe you're wondering, if Acrisius was so worried about her having children, why didn't he just kill her? Well, my evil thinking friend, the gods took family murders very seriously, which is weird since the gods basically invented family murders. If you kill your own child, Hades would make sure you got a special punishment in the underworld. The Furies would come after you, the Fates would snip your lifetime, some major bad karma would mess up your day. However, if your child just accidentally expired in an underground bronze cell, that was strictly murder. That was more like, oops, how did that happen? For months, Diana languished in her underground cell. There wasn't much to do except make little dough dolls out of the biscuit and water, or talk to Mr. Toilet, so she spent most of her time praying to the gods for help. Maybe she got their attention because she was so nice, or because she had always made offerings at the temple, or maybe it was because Diana was knockout gorgeous. One day, Zeus, the lord of the sky, heard Diana calling his name. Gods are like that. When you say their names, they perk right up. I bet they spend a lot of time googling themselves too. Zeus peered down from the heavens with his super keen X-ray vision. He saw the beautiful princess trapped in a bronze cell, lamenting her cruel fate. Dude, that is wrong, Zeus said to himself. What kind of father imprisons his own daughters if she can't fall in love or have kids? Actually, that was exactly the sort of thing Zeus might do, but whatever. She's kind of hot too, Zeus muttered. I think I'll pay that lady a visit. Zeus was always doing stuff like this. He'd fall in love with a mortal girl on first sight, drop into her life like a romantic hydrogen bomb, mess up her entire existence, and then head back to Mount Olympus, leaving his girlfriend to raise a kid all by herself. But really, I'm sure his intentions were honorable. Cuff. Yeah, right. With Diana, Zeus' only challenge was figuring out how to get into that maximum security bronze cell. He was a god, of course, he had skills. He could simply blast the doors open, but that might scare the poor girl. Plus, then he'd have to kill a bunch of guards, and that would be messy, causing explosions and leaving a small trail of mangled corpses and set the right move for the first date. He decided it would be easier to turn into something small and sneak in through the air vents. That would give him plenty of privacy with the girls of his dream. But what should he turn into? An ant would work. Zeus had done that once before with a different girl. But he wanted to make a good first impression, and ants don't have much of a wow factor. He decided to turn himself into something totally different. A shower of gold. He dissolved into a swirling cloud of 24-karat glitter and sped down from Mount Olympus. He poured through the air shaft, filling Diana's cell with warm, dazzling light that took her breath away. Fear not, said a voice from the glitter. I am Zeus, lord of the sky. You look fine, girl. Do you want to hang out? Diana never had a boyfriend, especially not a god boyfriend who could turn into glitter. Pretty soon, like in 5 or 6 minutes, she was madly in love. Weeks passed. Diana stayed so silent in her cell that the guards outside grew extremely bored. Then one day, about 9 months after the glitter incident, a guard was pushing a food tray through the slot in the door as usual when he heard a strange sound. A baby crying inside the cell. He ran to King Acrisius because this was the kind of thing that the boss would want to know about. When the king got there, he unlocked the door, stormed into the cell, and found cradling a newborn baby in a blanket. What? Acrisius scanned the cell. No one else was there. No one could have possibly gotten in. Because Acrisius had the only key and no one could have fitted through Mr. Toilet. How? Who? My lord, Diana said with a resentful gleam in her eyes. I have been visited by the god Zeus. This is our son. I have named him Perseus. Acrisius tried not to joke on his own tongue. The word Perseus is meant avenger or destroyer, depending on how you interpreted it. The king did not want the kid growing up to hang out with Iron Man and the Hulk, and from the way Diana was glaring at him, the king had a pretty good idea who she wanted destroyed. The king's worst fear about the prophecy was coming true, which was kind of stupid because if he hadn't been such a butthead and locked up his daughter, it never would have happened. But that's the way prophecies work. You try to avoid a trap, and in doing so, you end up building a trap yourself and stepping right into it. Acrisius wanted to murder Diana and the little boy. That was the safest bet. But there was that whole taboo thing about killing your own family. Annoying detail. Also, if Diana was telling the truth and Perseus was the son of Zeus, well, angering the Lord of the Universe wasn't going to help Acrisius' life expectancy. Acrisius decided to try something else. He ordered his guards to find a large wooden box with a hinged lid. He had some air holes drilled in the top just to show he was a nice guy. Then he stuffed Diana and her infant son inside, nailed the lid shut, and had the box tossed into the sea. He figured he wasn't killing them directly. Maybe they would perish from thirst and hunger. Maybe a nice storm would smash them to pieces and drown them. Whatever. It wouldn't be his fault. The king went back to the palace, slept well for the first time in years. Nothing like condemning your daughter and grandson to a slow, horrible death. To really ease your mind, if you are an air hole like Acrisius, that is. Meanwhile, inside the wooden box, Diana prayed to Zeus. Hi, it's me, Diana. I don't mean to bother you, but my dad kicked me out. I'm in a box in the middle of the sea, and Perseus is with me. So, yeah, if you could call me back or text me or something, that would be great. Zeus did better than that. He sent cool, gentle rain that trickled through the air holes and provided Diana and the baby with fresh water to drink. He persuaded his brother, the sea god Poseidon, to calm the waves and change the current so that the box would have a smooth journey. Poseidon even caused his sardines to leap onto the box and wriggle through the air holes so Diana could enjoy fresh sushi. My dad, Poseidon, is awesome that way. So instead of drowning or dying of thirst, Diana and Perseus survived just fine. After a few days, the SS wooden box approached the shore of an island called Seriphos, about 100 miles east from Argos. Diana and the baby still might have died because that box lid was nailed shut tight. Fortunately, a fisherman named Dictys happened to be sitting on the beach, mending his nets after a hard day of pulling in the fish. Dictys saw this huge wooden box bobbing on the tides and thought, "Oh, that's weird. I wonder what's inside," he said to himself. "Could be wine or olives or gold." "Help!" said a woman's voice from inside the box. "Wah!" cried another tiny voice from inside the box. "Or people," Dictys said. "It could be full of people." He got out his handy fishing knife and carefully prized off the top of the box. Inside sat Diana and baby Perseus, both of them grubby and tired and smelling like day-old sushi, but very much alive. Dictys helped them out and gave them some bread and water. Oh boy, Dana thought, more bread and water. The fisherman asked Dana what had happened to her. She decided to go light on the details. After all, she didn't know where she was, and or if the local king was a friend of her dad's. For all she knew, she landed in Hackensack. She just told Dictys that her father had kicked her out because she'd fallen in love and had a child without his permission. Who's the boy's father? Dictys wondered. Oh, Zeus. The fisherman's eyes widened. He believed her immediately. Despite Danae's grubby appearance, he could tell she was beautiful enough to attract a god. And from the way she talked, and her general composure, he guessed she was a princess. Dictys wanted to help her and a little baby, but he had a lot of conflicting emotion. I could take you to see my brother, he said reluctantly. His name is Polydectes. He's the king of this island. Would he welcome us? Danae asked. Would he give me asylum? I'm sure he would. Dictys tried not to sound nervous, but his brother was a notorious ladies' man. He would probably welcome Danae a little too warmly. Danae frowned. If your brother is the king, why are you only a fisherman? I mean, no offense, fishermen are cool. I prefer not to spend too much time at the palace, Dictys said. Family issues. Danae knew all about family issues. She was uneasy about seeking help from Polydectes, but she didn't see another option, unless she wanted to stay on the beach and make a hut out of her box. Should I get cleaned up first? She asked Dictys. No, said the fisherman. With my brother, you should look as unattractive as possible. In fact, maybe rub some more sand on your face. Put some seaweed in your hair. Dictys led Dinah and the baby into the main town on Seriphos. Looming above all the other buildings was the king's palace, a mass of white marble columns and sandstone walls, with banners flying from the turrets and a bunch of thuggish-looking guards at the gate. Then I started to wonder if living in a box on the beach wasn't such a bad idea. But she followed her fisherman friend into the throne room. King Polydectes sat on a solid bronze throne that must have offered little in the way of lower back support. Behind him, the walls were festooned with war trophies, weapons, shields, banners, and a few stuffed heads of his enemies. You know, the usual decor to brighten up an audience chamber. Well, well, said Polydectes. What have you brought me, brother? It looks like you finally caught something worthwhile in your fishing nets. Dictys tried to think of a way to say, please be nice to her and don't kill me. You are dismissed, the king said. The guards hustled the poor fisherman away. Polydectes leaned towards Danae. His grin didn't make him look any friendlier, since he had some nasty crooked teeth. He wasn't fooled by Danae's ragged clothes, the sand on her face, the seaweed and tiny sardines in her hair, or the bundle of rags she was holding. Why was she holding that bundle? Was it her carry-on bag? Polydectes could see how beautiful the girl was. Those eyes were gorgeous, that face perfection. Give her a bath and some proper clothes and she could pass for a princess. Do not be afraid, my dear, he said. How can I help you? Then I tried to play the victim, thinking the king would respond to that. She fell to her knees and wept. My lord, I am Danae, princess of Argos. My father, King Acrisius, cast me out. I beg you for your protection. Polydectes' heart wasn't exactly moved, but his mental gears definitely started running. Argos, nice city. He had heard about Acrisius, the old king with no sons. Oh, this was too good. If Polydectes married Danae, he would become the ruler of both cities. He would finally have 2 throne rooms with enough wall space to display all the stuffed heads he kept in storage. Princess Danae, of course I grant you sanctuary, he said, loud enough for all his attendants to hear. I swear upon the gods you will be safe with me. He rose from his throne and descended the steps of his dais. He meant to take Danae in his arms to show what a kind, loving dude he was. As soon as he got within 5 feet of her, the princess's bundle of rags started screaming. Polydectes jumped back. The screaming stopped. What sorcery is this? Polydectes demanded. You have a bundle of screaming rags. It's a baby, my lord. Danae tried not to smirk at the king's horrified expression. This is my son Perseus, whose father is Zeus. I hope your promise of protection extends to my poor tiny child as well. Polydectes developed a tick in his right eye. He hated babies, wrinkly, pudgy creatures that cried and pooped. He was sorry he didn't notice the kid earlier, but he'd been distracted by Danae's beauty. He couldn't take back his promise now. All of his attendants had heard him say it. Besides, if the baby was the child of Zeus, that complicated matters. You couldn't chuck demigod babies in the bin without angering the gods. Most of the time, anyway. Of course, the king managed. What a cute little thing. He will have my protection too. I'll tell you what, the king edged closer, but Perseus started screaming again. The kid had an evil king radar. Ha ha, Polydectes said weakly. The boy has a strong set of lungs. He can be raised in a temple of Athena, far away at the other end of the city. I mean, conveniently located in the best part of the city. The priest there will take excellent care of him. In the meantime, you and I, dear princess, can become better acquainted. Polydectes was used to getting his way. He figured out it would take 15 or maybe 16 minutes stop to get Danae to marry him. Instead, the next 17 years were the most frustrating time in Polydectes' life. Try as he might to become better acquainted with Danae, the princess and his son thwarted Polydectes at every turn. The king gave Danae her own suite of rooms at the palace. He gave her fancy clothes, beautiful jewelry, and maid servants, and an all-you-can-eat coupon book for the royal buffet. But Danae wasn't fooled. She knew she was just as much a prisoner here as she had been in that bronze cell. She wasn't allowed to leave the palace. Aside from her servants, the only visitors she would have were her son and his nursemaids from the temple of Athena. Danae loved those visits from Perseus. While he was a baby, he would scream every time the king got close to Danae. Since the king couldn't stand the noise, he would leave quickly and go take some aspirin. When Perseus wasn't around, Danae found other ways to rebuff the king's flirting. When he came to her door, she would make retching sounds and apologize for being sick. She would hide in the palace laundry room. She would weep uncontrollably while her maidservants looked on until the king felt embarrassed and ran away. For years, the king tried to win her affection. For years, she resisted. Their mutual stubbornness was kind of impressive. Actually, once Perseus got older, things got easier for Danae and harder for Polydectes. After all, Perseus was a demigod. The dude had mad talent. By the time he was 7, he could wrestle a grown man to the floor. By the time he was 10, he could shoot an arrow across the length of the island and wield a sword better than any soldier in the king's army. Growing up in the temple of Athena, he learned about warfare and wisdom. How to pick your fights, how to honor the gods, all good stuff to know if you want to live through puberty. He was a good son, which meant he continued to visit his mom as often as possible. He didn't scream anymore when Polydectes came around, but if the king tried to flirt with Danae, Perseus would stand nearby, glaring, his arms crossed and several deadly weapons hanging from his bed, until the king retreated. You'd think Polydectes would have given up, right? There were plenty of other women to bother, but you know how it is. Once you're told you can't have something, you want it even more. By the time Perseus turned 17, Polydectes was out of his mind with irritation. He wanted to marry Danae before she was too old to have more kids. He wanted to see his own children become the king of Argos and Seriphos, which added up to one thing. Perseus had to go. But how to get rid of a demigod without directly murdering him? Especially since Perseus at 17 was the strongest and best fighter on the island. What Polydectes needed was a good trap. A way to make Perseus walk right into his own destruction, without any of the blame slashing back on Polydectes. Over the years, the king has seen a lot of heroes gallivanting around, slaying monsters, rescuing villages and cute puppies, winning the hearts of princes and princesses, and getting major endorsement deals. Polydectes had no use for such nonsense, but he noticed that most heroes had a fatal flaw. Some weakness that, with any luck, would get them killed. What was Perseus' fatal law? The boy was a prince of Argos, a son of Zeus, yet he'd grown up as a castaway in a foreign kingdom, with no money and only his mother for family. This made him a little touchy about his reputation. He was anxious to prove himself. He would take on any challenge, if Polydectes could use that against him. The king began to smile. Oh yes, he had just the challenge in mind. Later that week, Polydectes announced that he was collecting wedding presents for the princess of a neighboring island. Her name was Hippodamia. Her dad, King Ainomas, oh wow, was an old friend of Polydectes, but none of that was really important. It was just an excuse to collect presents. Polydectes gathered all the rich and famous of Seriphos for a party at the palace to see what kind of loot they would carve out. Everybody wanted to impress the king, so they compared with one another to give the coolest his presents. One family contributed a silver vase studded with rubies, another gifted a golden chariot and a team of pure white horses, another offered 1,000 drachma, a gift certificate for iTunes. Nothing but the best for the old what's her name who was getting married to whoever. As the gifts piled up, Polydectes complimented everybody and made all the rich and famous people feel special, like they didn't already. Finally, he spotted Perseus over by the horse stable, hanging out with his mom and trying to go unnoticed. Perseus didn't want on to be at the stupid party. Watching a bunch of snooty nobles suck up to the king wasn't his idea of fun. But he had a duty to look out for his mother in case Polydectes got flirty. So here he was, drinking lukewarm punch and eating mini weenies on toothpicks. Well, Perseus, the king called across the room, what have you brought as a present for my ally's daughter's wedding? You are the mightiest warrior in Seriphos. Everyone says so. Surely you have brought the most impressive gift. Yeah, that was really low. Everyone knew Perseus was poor. The other guests snickered and turned up their noses, glad to see the young upstart put in his place. They didn't like it when handsome, strong, talented demigods from out of town topped them at anything. Perseus' face turned bright red. Next to him, Danae whispered, Don't say anything, my son. He's trying to make you angry. It's some sort of trap. Perseus wouldn't listen. He hated being made fun of. He was the son of Zeus, but the king and his nobles treated him like a worthless bum. He was tired of Polydectes and the way he kept Danae prisoner in the palace. Perseus stepped to the middle of the room. The nobles parted around him. He called to the king. I may not be like the richest one here, but I keep my promises. What would you like, Polydectes? Name any wedding gift. For what's her name? Name it and I'll bring it. The crowd tittered nervously. Yes, I looked it up. Tittered is totally a word. Polydectes just smiled. He'd been waiting for this. A fine promise, said the king. But promises are easy. Would you swear a binding oath? Say on the river of Styx? FYI, don't swear on the river of Styx. It's the most serious oath you can make. If you don't keep your word, you're basically inviting Hades, his furies, and all the demons of the underworld to drag you down to eternal punishment with no chance of parole. Perseus glanced up at his mother. Then I shook her head. Perseus knew that making an oath to an evil guy like Polydectes was unwise. The priest who had raised him at Athena's temple would not approve. Then Perseus looked around at the crowd, sneering and smirking at him. I promise on the river Styx, he shouted. What do you want, Polydectes? The king reclined on his uncomfortable bronze throne. He gazed at the stuffed heads decorating his wall. Bring me. Cue the dramatic music. The head of Medusa. Yeah, well, you got it right. Cue the gasping crowd. Even saying the name Medusa was considered bad luck. Hunting her down and cutting off her head, that wasn't something you'd wish on your worst enemy. Medusa was the freakiest monster known to the Greeks. Once she'd been a beautiful woman, but after she had a romantic get together with Poseidon in Athena's temple, possibly the same temple where Perseus was raised, Athena had turned the poor girl into a hideous creature. You think your morning face is bad? Medusa was so ugly that one glance at her would turn you to stone. No one had ever seen her and lived. According to rumors, she had gold bat wings, brass talons for fingers, and hair made out of living poisonous snakes. She lived somewhere far to the east with her two sisters, who had also been transformed into bat-winged monsters, maybe because they had dared to stay with their sister. Together, the three of them were known as the Gorgons, which sounds like an awesome name for a backup band. Now, opinion. Johnny Gricus and the Gorgons. Okay, maybe not. Many heroes had ventured off to find Medusa and kill her because, well, I'm not sure why actually. She wasn't bothering anyone as far as I know. Maybe just because it was a hard quest, or maybe there was a prize for killing the ugliest monster. Whatever. The case is the no hero who went for after her had ever returned. For a moment, the throne room was absolutely still. The crowd looked horrified. They looked horrified. Perseus was so horrified he couldn't feel his own toes. Polydectes smiled like Christmas had come early. You did say, name it and I'll bring it, correct? Well, the king spread his arms. Bring it. The tension broke. The crowd howled with laughter. Looking at Perseus, a 17-year-old nobody, and imagining him cutting off the head of Medusa, it was too ridiculous, someone yelled. Bring me a Gorgon shirt while you are at it. Bring me a snow cone, someone else shouted. Perseus fled in shame. His mother called after him, but he just kept on running. On the throne, Polydectes basked in applause as he ordered party music and a round of lukewarm punch for everyone. He was in the mood to celebrate. At the very least, if Perseus chickened out, he'd be too embarrassed to ever come back. Maybe the gods would kill him for breaking his oath. And if the kid was actually stupid enough to find Medusa, well, Perseus would end up as a colossal demigod paperweight. The king's problems were over. After fleeing the palace, Perseus ran to the cliffs overlooking the sea. He stood at the edge and tried not to cry. The night sky was covered in clouds, as if even Zeus was ashamed to look at him. Dad, Perseus said, I've never asked you for anything. I've never complained. I've always made the right sacrifices and tried to be a good son to my mother. Now I've messed up. I opened my big mouth and made an impossible promise. I'm not asking you to solve my problem for me, but please, I really appreciate some guidance. How do I get myself out of this? Okay guys, thank you for listening to the story till here. Now if you want to know how Perseus defeats Medusa, do stay tuned to the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching.